Welcome back. Anti-ICE protests erupting across Los Angeles and major blue cities over the weekend. President Trump not backing down on his illegal immigration crackdown, particularly when it comes to criminality. He posted on Truth Social about the expansion of efforts to detain and deport illegals in big blue cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. The president saying, quote, "The American people want our cities, schools, and communities to be safe and free from illegal alien crime, conflict, and chaos." Joining me now is California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton. Steve, thanks so much for being here. I want to get your reaction to these No Kings protests and all the activity in Los Angeles. It's amazing to me that anybody would be even allowed any movement whatsoever to start a fire in Los Angeles today. After what we just witnessed, okay, just months ago, when people lost everything because of the Los Angeles wildfires. That should be absolutely outlawed for someone to even think that they could put a car on fire. Your reaction?
I know. Exactly. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? But I'm afraid that's what we're dealing with in California on pretty much on every policy issue. Insanity. Just regular people see what's going on and can't believe it. And actually, what we saw with these riots in response to the ICE enforcement operations, it wasn't even the first time we've had these fires set in this way, Maria, in recent weeks. Just a couple of weeks before, there was an illegal warehouse party in Los Angeles, around 1,000 people. It went totally out of control. The mob went around marauding around a neighborhood in Los Angeles, doing exactly the same kinds of things as we saw in the riots, smashing up local businesses, vandalizing police cars, setting other cars on fire, vandalizing a police vehicle while the officer was there doing nothing about it. And that's the story. The police stood back and did nothing about it. And so the mob heard the lesson. You can get away with it in Los Angeles, in California. That's what you saw with the riots in response to what ICE was doing. And remember, what ICE was doing was enforcing federal law, getting violent criminals out of the country who've already been given deportation notices. And so the whole thing just reveals how badly we need change in California. You can't go on in this situation where people just flout the law year after year after year and nothing happens.
Well, I mean, President Trump has been very clear. Tom Homan has also been very clear that the priority is getting criminals off the streets. In fact, you know, the president even went as far recently as to say on social media that he's willing to exempt the agriculture and hotel industries from his nationwide immigration crackdown after executives in those industries complained about losing reliable, long-time immigrant workers in immigration raids. He said, "Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good, long-time workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace." The president is telling you every day that what he's trying to do is put security back in America. He says in many cases the criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open borders policy are applying for those jobs. This is not good. We must protect our farmers but get the criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming. So why do you think California Governor Gavin Newsom is still fighting the president on quelling the violence and getting the criminals off of our streets?
So Gavin Newsom has completely lost the plot. He doesn't know what he's doing, Maria. Like a few months ago, he was all about trying to pretend that he's moderate. Of course, he's not. He didn't do anything about any of the issues that he talked about, whether that's biological men and girls sports or anything else. And then suddenly he's decided that his path to becoming the Democrat nominee in 2028 is to attack President Trump and be the leader of the anti-Trump resistance. But it's ridiculous because no one's buying it. His state is a disaster. It's the worst run state in America. And specifically on the immigration point, this shows actually, as we see on so many issues, how great President Trump is, because he is not an ideologue. He is pragmatic.
That's right.
He's common sense. He does what the vast majority of people agree with on all the issues. You see that, where he adjusts and does things that make sense. And in this case, it makes sense to prioritize, to say we've got millions and tens of millions of people who are here illegally. And so let's start with the people that everyone would agree about, violent criminals who've been given deportation notices, and let's do it in a way that commands public support. But yet again, you've got Gavin Newsom and the far left Democrats in California putting themselves in the tiny minority the 20% or even fewer versus the 80+% who would agree with what the president's doing.
And while the president is not an ideologue, these other groups are. They have Trump derangement syndrome, and they are just looking at their ideologies and moving on them. Conservative activist group Catholic Vote released the Gavin Newsom files, calling for the governor, quote, one of America's most radical, destructive politicians who remains the same ideologue who has trampled parental rights, championed the transgender mutilation of children, and taken pro-abortion advocacy to a sickening extreme. Even actor Mel Gibson spoke out about the leadership failures in Los Angeles. Watch this.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. And I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate? It's time to take back our community and our state and put the power and the privilege in the hands of competent leaders whose goals are to protect us and the way of life this nation was founded upon and promises to offer.
Steve, you're running to replace Governor Newsom in 2026, but do you believe that you can actually attract enough people to come out? I mean, you look at what happened in New York, and the actual people who came out it's a small group and all liberal. Do you think you can actually appeal to those independents to come out and vote Republican?
Yes, look, the tide is turning in California, Maria. People are so sick of what's going on.
Yeah.
You've got the highest taxes in the country, the highest rate of poverty, the law and order disaster, as we've seen, the ridiculous climate extremism that's given us the worst business climate in America. Businesses are fleeing. And I see change everywhere. You saw 10 counties flip from blue to red last November. President Trump got more votes in California last year than any Republican presidential candidate for a generation. And that's the key. There are enough Trump voters in California to put me over the line when I run for governor next year in the elections. But actually, it's all about getting them to turn out in a midterm year. And that is all about the strength of our message, a positive, dynamic campaign that says to people, we don't have to put up with this anymore in California. The Republican votes are there. President Trump just showed that. We've just got to get them to turn out and vote for change next year. And that's exactly what I'm fighting for and why I'm running in this by the way, very specific policies that will get people like $3 gas in California, not the $8 we're going to end up with Gavin Newsom.
Right. All right, Steve, we'll be watching your campaign for sure. Thanks so much for making the case. Steve Hilton joining us this morning ahead of the big race in California. We'll be right back. Stay with us.